Well, hello there. In this video I'm going to be sharing my first impressions of the Behringer RS-9 Rhythm Sequencer. It's a module I've been playing about with for about a week now, and it's one I was very excited to get my hands on, and so now I've started playing with it a bit, I wanted to share with you what I thought. First off, let's talk about the price, and I picked this up for £124 plus £10 shipping from Tommen. It's an absolute steal in my opinion. Very rarely do you get this much functionality for such little cost in the Eurorack world. I'd also like to mention at this point that even though I have made some suggested improvements in this video, at this price the RS9 is still a bargain. If Behringer pick up any of these changes in a future update, then it will be even more of a deal. So don't let anything that I mention in this video which comes across as slightly negative put you off, because these comments are intended to be constructive and not a dig at what is essentially a really great and affordable module. Behringer can do this because they've got high volume manufacturing capabilities which affords them this kind of pricing model. So I'm not expecting other module makers to be able to follow suit, and this price is definitely a winner in my book. And for many others it will also open up this kind of programmatic trigger sequencing, which otherwise, because of costs associated with modules of this nature, they would have been excluded from. The build quality is top notch. Whilst the keypad is not of the mechanical keyboard type, the button presses do feel pretty good. The knobs and other buttons all feel good too, as do the 3.5mm jacks. I was a bit down on the feel of the knobs on the K2 Mark II from Behringer, but I can assure you that in this module the build quality is good. I mean really good when you consider the price, so nice job to Behringer. One thing you definitely can't get away from is the size of this module, and at 52 HP it's a monster. I have mixed feelings about this, as rack space tends to be precious and quite expensive, so it would have been better in a smaller form factor I guess. Or if you're listening Behringer, I'd love you to make an affordable 52 HP case for this module, perhaps around £60 to £80, as this would still make the overall package powered case represent really good value for money. I've popped this in the Rack Brute 6U from Arturia, and along with a few other drum modules, this is all connected into the Behringer Hex Mix, so there's not much space to spare. For me, I'm considering whether to pop this in its own little case so I can bring this to a wider variety of situations, and maybe a case with a qubit bloom, because I think having trigger sequencing and melodic sequencing together could be a very interesting proposition. Anyway, the workflow has been taken from the RD9, which is in itself a clone of the Roland 909 drum machine, and the workflow takes a little while to adjust to, especially having to press the record button to drop in a note into the sequence. Otherwise, what happens is the note gets cleared after it's played. I personally like this to be a global setting where you can have this always armed and ready to input notes if you want it to be. It's the way I find other drum machines work, and I mean it's not really a deal breaker, especially as this does reduce the risk of changing a drum pattern unintentionally if you're not in record mode, so some people might like that. One area the package is seriously lacking though is the manual which comes with this module. The manual describes what the functions are of each element of the module, but they don't really show you how to use it, and I've had to play around quite a bit to work out how to get the RS9 to function in the first instance. And again, once you overcome this hurdle, things do start to make a bit more sense. I think there's going to be a bunch of YouTube how-tos, and they're going to be essential on how to get the most out of this module, because like I said, the manual does leave a lot to be desired. The amount of trigger outputs on this module really is astonishing. And one of the upsides of having such a large module is you can sequence up to 10 parts. One thing I'm going to look further into is how CV and MIDI cooperate with one another, as it's also my intention to have this trigger my Roland TR6S drum machine over MIDI. alongside having your rack modules being triggered at the same time. Essentially that will give the RS-9 the master clock duties. What's also really cool with this module is some of the more performative features. So the note and step repeat functions are really fun, and they open up a whole world of playability. It's really fun to jam with them, and it would be awesome if you could externally trigger these in some way. Perhaps this is something that might be manipulated over MIDI. At the moment I've not got around to hooking that up, so I don't know what can and can't be sequenced externally from MIDI, but if I do find a way of making that function, then I will share that on YouTube. Aside from the manual, one of the main areas which the module could do with a bit of additional work is the accent outputs. There are 10 of these, and they just send out a hot earth signal. There's a global level to set how hot this CV signal is, but in a modular setup you would need a bunch of other modules to utilise this trigger, and even then I'm really struggling to see what benefit this function is. What I would love to see is have these outputs being able to have different accent levels in a similar way the CV output works. If Behringer could make these CV values fit into musical key as well, that would turn the RS-9 into a really lovely weird 10-track sequencer or 11-track sequencer when you consider the CV output as well. That would be really cool, and I think it feels like it's something that Behringer could do, being as they've already got this functionality on one of the outs. So, you know, who knows. Another thought I had about how the accent outputs could be further developed is to have them set up to output simple envelopes, with the accent control setting the decay amount. 10 triggers and 10 envelopes would open up so much creative potential. I currently have mutable instrument stages, and I love it because it's got 6 envelopes and 6 LFOs. Having that similar functionality in this as a utility module could be a real game changer for this. I'll say it's a little module, but it's a beast, right? This massive module. Finally, I'd love to see a bit more being made of the 4x4 keypad. It's used for the step sequencing and it's got some settings, but it could also be turned into a performative feature as well. So think of like the pocket operators from Teenage Engineering. Maybe temporarily pressing one of the buttons could do a shuffle, but not straightforward repeat like you've got on the step and note repeats. And I'm sure there are other options that Behringer could explore, or I'm sure there's other people in the community, like the Facebook community, which would come up with a load of ideas that would be really useful to make the most out of those 16 buttons. Well, this video isn't a review, instead it's my initial take, and in short I'd say that the RS-9 is a great value trigger sequencer, even with its shortcomings today. It's on a solid platform, it's well made, and hopefully with some future firmware updates it's got the potential to have a really long life. I'm really looking forward to digging in deeper and mixing it up more with other drum modules and MIDI gear to see what else I can do with the beast. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more about the Behringer and the modular world, then have a look at this little video over here.